Okay, so finally, sorry again for the problems with the screen that made us start 20 minutes later than we expected. But I hope you find well, the presentation interesting to an extent that we can still have a round of questions at the end. Please come closer to me. There's only 4 of us. We thought about this panel as an opportunity to reflect here in the Smart City Expo, a topic that is relevant, I think, for all the participants, not only in the Agora, but around us, that relates to data and participation. For one perspective, data can be, of course, something of economic value, can have a great impact in cities, in public policies. It's surrounding us. We are feeding somehow different projects with data, different types of projects. And cities and citizens are also the backbone of participation and democratic and political participation. And as citizens, we are constantly providing data also to city councils. We are constantly engaging, or in some cases that we will see. We are trying all the possible things here, screen, mic, but in short, I think we don't. Then we just talk. So as I was saying, we have the opportunity here to know about different projects that are dealing with data and participation, where citizens are at the core and cities at the core of the process. And it's a pleasure for me to moderate the table. We will start with Beth Coleman from the City as Platform project. Please, all yours.
Good morning. Oh, yeah, this is on. So I wanted to show you a project. And should I just run the slides from there? So the premise of this project is we've reached a level of consensus, or at least a shift in popular discourse around the value and the purpose of data as a right and as a protected right. So the argument that I'm making with some of the speculative design work is, how can we go from some agreement about the kind of ideological place of data in our lives, that it's central, it's important, and it should be protected, and we should have sovereignty over our data. How do we move toward the actions of that? So what kinds of systems are we designing that we can make available to more people in a more popular way, making visible the data that's available and also making it actionable? So with my group, what we've been doing is working through some new tech platforms to play with some ideas of data publics. So this piece is augmented reality and virtual reality combination views. And we're working with air quality index data, so AQI, because every city has air. And part of the design of the project is to stack the information in such a way that it's accountable at every level. You know, the provenance, you know, where the data comes from, you know, why it's been accredited or stamped as this is the official count for Barcelona or for Amsterdam or for New York. And instead of just getting a piece of data in front of you that you just say, okay, here's the number of the CO2 measurement, you also have access to a critical data view of how and why this information has been aggregated, so you understand the background. Okay, so let me walk you through some of what this project looks like. And this is just really early here, beta. So from the augmented reality view, you get a city in front of you. So you see from the kind of perspective of a bird or God or something like that, a city. And when you zoom in, you see a little avatar. And this avatar is sitting there in this kind of cube of polluted air. And what we have from that moment is an IoT device. It's I didn't put the picture in the deck, but it's a bottle that's just a networked connected bottle that you spray. One spray gives you accelerated 10 years of CO2. 2 sprays, it gives you accelerated 20 years of CO2. And now I move to the immersive view, the VR view of the avatar. So here you are, this little figure in a city. You're looking around. You can't see the pollution, but you start to feel its effects. Your eyesight gets dark. The whole world is turning red and blurry. And then at this point in the design, the only action that you can take as the avatar is to die. So it's a very short gameplay where the experience is you go into a city because we're augmenting your view, and this is possible, but it's not perfectly possible in design at the moment. So for example, the HoloLens that we're using, I can do this perfectly in the lab or in the studio, but if I take it outside, I can't see anything because that piece of equipment is not made for outside use. But even more to the point, it's a $7,000 headset. So right now, if I want to design a real-time locative augmented experience, we're playing through different paradigms with the idea that I'm for the invention around the technology, but I'm also for this invention with a purpose of how can we use this in a way that's meaningful and gives us both more understanding of the context that we're in and ability to shape and shift and input in that context. So this is, I don't know if the video will play. This is what happens to your avatar right now. It's just a little, oh, now you're dead. So this is a mode of speculative design working with actual data and the interrogation around what's making up our data sets. And very quickly, as you know, when you're working with data, it gets political. So AQI, air quality, that seems fairly both literally universal and also not necessarily spiky in terms of the information that's being determined. But the moment you start digging into where you have the impact of cars, where you have the impact of noise, who is associated with those neighborhoods, you already get a different kind of topology of a city. And some of the data that we're looking at is clearly politicized in terms of economies and also cultures of colonialism. So for example, I'm collaborating with a group who's working on data around Imperial Oil, which is an oil company in Canada. And the Imperial Oil Company, they're on the lands of a native group. So the primary people who've been workers for this company over the past 30 years are indigenous people. And the indigenous people living there are also the primary people who have been impacted in their bodies in terms of the chemical atmosphere that they're living with. So this data set is much more complex to put together because the Imperial Oil Company divides its outputs in terms of what it reports. So you cannot make clear associations between medical conditions and the conditions that people are living under in this. It's still industrial conditions, even though we're in this post-industrial moment. So that data, in terms of ferreting it out, finding it, and putting it together in an associative manner, some of it you can get causal in terms of the types of diseases, lung disease and heart disease that people are working with. That data set is really political and productive in pointing to, here's the effect of this industry in this neighborhood. The other side of it, what happens if we get rid of Imperial Oil? Because I asked the activist group we're working with, what's the outcome? And they said, get rid of Imperial Oil. I said, okay, but the people here, they also like to have electricity, they like to have the running water and the rest. So how are we thinking about replacing, if it's particularly in really polluted, toxic zones, how are we thinking about replacing some of that infrastructure with clean? Because it's not simple, it's not a simple track. But that's a separate but adjacent question to the data use. Okay, so that's my presentation for the moment. Now we talk.
Yeah, I think it's good if we have our presentations first and then we open the dialogue with the rest of you. It's okay for you? We do it like this. So yeah. Sorry, I forgot the surname. Yeah, Mattia Marini from the Sharing Cities Alliance is now presenting also a new project that deals with data from cities. And yeah. Okay, you don't have video to play. No, I think it's this one. No.
I don't think it's one of this. No? No.
Put it again. Okay, we are still facing this slight problem with the screen that we had at the beginning. So the presentation should be there. Sorry for this. Let me, no, it's here. Just a second, it's here, it's here. Okay, yeah. Okay, this is what happens when we start early in the morning, and thank you again for your patience. We thought about this table, also a preamble of the workshop we're having right at 10:30. 10:30, 10:45, depending on when we finish, that deals also with some of the things already mentioned. What's the kind of, well, as you say, no, that data is political, and that has a lot of implications, no? And it's a two-way dialogue that we want to open right after this presentation with the Decode project related to Decidim that also Arnau is going to present. So we will change at some moment from the presentation mode into the working groups mode, and we hope you are still with us the rest of the morning, because yeah, we want to work with you basically and open up the discussion and improve a specific pilot that we want to talk to you about right after this session. Okay, we have the slides already. Thanks.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Because we are already a bit late, I will try to keep it short. So good morning, everyone. My name is Mattia, and I'm working for the Sharing Cities Alliance. But before starting with the presentation of our online database, I will give you a brief overview about what we're doing in the Sharing Cities Alliance. The Sharing Cities Alliance was founded in May 2017 by Harmen Masprang and Peter van der Grind, and during the second Sharing Cities Summit in New York. And it is a network of cities operated by an independent foundation. And its goal is to foster city-to-city collaboration and to empower governments to address the challenges and opportunities of sharing economy. At the current state, there are 15 cities which are part of our network. This is not updated yet, but there are almost 100 million of citizens in the Sharing Cities Alliance. And of course, we want it to grow more and more. Among the different services we provide is the Alliance Lexicon, which is our online database, and we usually shorten into Alex. Why Alex? Alex was born because there are challenges for our cities, and we do believe that challenges for our cities are urgent, and we need to address those challenges by providing knowledge. And all our member cities are really excited and happy of how the database works. So the online database is basically a place in which we store research, case studies, policies, and regulation about sharing a platform economy, but much more. And also it is a place where we store our other activities. So the previous edition of our online magazines, our online seminars, information about the summits, and much more. As of October 2018, it has already been active for 15 months, and we like to define it as a collective memory of cities. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how it works. So we have different topics from mobility, tourism, finance, food, health and citizenship, and much more. And for each topic, we have different subcategories from research, case studies, policies, and regulation. This is an example from the mobility section. And this is the reader perspective, but there's also the user perspective. So what we do, this is the interface we use to create articles for which we provide summaries and key points and the main findings. So this is how the database works, but we always have different challenges that we have to face. First one is how to make this model financially sustainable, because at the current state, it is not. And one of the solutions that we are trying to adopt to face this problem is through partnership and collaboration. Partnership with different independent organizations from sharing and platform economy, technology, social well-being, health and education. One of them, some of you might know it, is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is an independent charity based in the UK, which aims at inspiring the rethinking and redesign process for the future through the framework of circular economy. The second challenge I want to address today is how to have these different concepts on the same line. In fact, our main goal is to have open Alex, so open our database to everyone in the next months, and possibly just from January 2019. We do believe in the value of open knowledge, and we do believe that it can enhance participatory process and diversity in material and sources, but also network opportunities to grow. But at the same time, we know that open databases always lack in the quality, might lack in the quality of the products. So that's something we don't know. And at the same time, of course, we want to preserve the value of our work. So these are the main challenges that we are facing, but what are the next steps? For sure, the Alliance is willing to invest its resources in the database, but we do acknowledge that collaboration is key for its functioning. Before I conclude, I also want to mention that cities play a key role in this process, as cities are always encouraged to share material and policies with us. But as we receive policies which are confidential or restricted, we have to keep some parts of the database closed. So that's also cities' responsibilities. That's part of the game. To conclude, it's really clear for us what we believe in and what's the path that we want to undertake. Of course, it's not easy, and sometimes, as happens in real life, the road is difficult and has obstacles and challenges. And to keep walking in this direction, we need to have a good balance between having open database, still having high quality of the material provided, by having a model which is financially sustainable, but at the same time also, yes, having so open database, high quality, having a model financially sustainable, and preserving the value of our work. So that was my presentation. Thank you for your patience, and we are always welcome for always looking for recommendations, and if you have any suggestion, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you. Before moving to the final presentation, I would like to add that from Demons, from our research team, and also in discussion with the Sharing Cities Alliance and other partners, we are also in this big open question about what the impact of data is and open data sets as a kind of common resource or a pool of resources that I think brings also to something that you mentioned, no? This kind of tension between open data, or this paradigm that we all knew from previous years, and what could be a deeper look at data commons, data governance. Is it open for all and for everything the way to go, or there should be other considerations? This is also part of the work we want to do after this session. And it's at the core also of the Decidim project and how it's embedded in these discussions of open data and citizen participation. We switch from a Linux laptop to a Mac in question of minutes, and that happens. It's again, sorry for this. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the invitation, Enric. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Arnau Monterde from the Research, Innovation and Development in Participation in the city of Barcelona. And I'll try to present Decidim. This is a project that we are working for the last 2 years, and it's a digital platform for political participation. What is Decidim? Decidim is, as I said, is a platform for participation to organize democratic process for public institutions or for any kind of organization. It is also a free software project. It is one of the main free software projects of the city of Barcelona with a huge people and repositories involved in this project. And it is also a great community around the project who is trying to govern and decide democratically about the software. Probably the most important application of the platform is Decidim Barcelona, is the platform for the city. And just to give you an overview of the Decidim Barcelona is hosting today around 36 participatory processes in the city, and this is the data of the platform today in Barcelona. 30,000 active users, a lot of accepted proposals, 40,000 proposals gathered by the city council, almost 200,000 supports, etc. 1,000 physical meetings in the city. We have everything collected in Decidim Barcelona. And probably one of the most successful participatory process in the city is the action plan. It was a strategic plan, and it was a plan with a huge participation, with 40,000 people involved and around 11,000 proposals gathered. And yes, and probably, and this is very related also with the question of the data, today we can track the evolution of the proposals done by the citizens during this process. And today the city council have developed 80% of the commitments during this participatory process. Which are the values of the platform? The first one is that the platform is open to collaboration. It's a free software platform, but it is also, we have a lot of ways to participate and to be involved on the project. We have a GPL Afero 3.0 license, and we have all the documentation with an open license also. We try to follow the principles of transparency, traceability, which means that we need transparency around along the time, and the integrity. We need to guarantee to the citizens that we are not interfering or transforming their contributions in the platform. We have different measures to give democratic guarantees to all the participatory process that we have in the platform, like non-discrimination, inclusiveness, provide ways to facilitate the participation in this digital environment, and to have different mediation points, which mean that we have to facilitate the infrastructures to the citizens to participate. And the last main principle is that the privacy and security. We try to keep, actually, we keep the anonymity of the citizens in the platform. You can participate without to reveal your identity in the platform. And we have different protocols for the security in the platform in order to guarantee also the anonymity and political participation. How it works, the Decidim. it's very easy. Decidim allows to organize different kind of participatory process. Allows also to propose, to deliberate, to meet in a physical meetings to discuss, providing contributions in favor, against, neutral. We can have different discussion threads and in order to enrich the digital participation. We have an easy way to configure different participatory process to respond the needs of any kind of organization doing a participatory process, like strategic planification, participative regulation, participatory budgets, any kind of participatory process, it can be done in this platform. And we have a specific module for participatory budgets, and we are very worried in how we integrate digital and physical participations, and this is why we develop a way to integrate these two layers of the project. At the end, we have like spaces of participation, process assemblies, initiative, consultations to vote, and we have different components or modules in order to have a flexible ecosystem, a modular ecosystem to configure. Just to give an examples about these spaces to participate, we have participatory processes, we have citizens initiative, which means that we have a kind of change.org, but it's mandatory. It's a mandatory way to push initiative from the citizens in order to be approved by for the government. We have assemblies to organize our organization with different working groups, and we have consultations in order to vote something like in a referendum. At the end, Decidim is also a kind of political or participatory network. You can follow the users, you can mention it, you can follow the participatory spaces, you can follow any kind of content in order to be updated about all the things that are happening in the platform. Just to finish, as I said before, the CIM is a free software project, and the city council has invested a lot of money in the project, and we believe, and this is a principle of the project, that any kind of inversion from the public sector has to be open and has to be free in order to anyone has to see the code, modify the code, reproduce the code, copy, and distribute. And this is probably why Decidim is a success project. And we have a democratic way to participate in the design of the software in order to be democratic, transparent, and robust, the software. Just to give you an example, we have translated the platform to 3 languages, and the community has translated the platform to 17 languages. And this is an example of how the community is contributing to extend the project. Here you can see our, this is our platform for a community. Sorry. You can check in meta.decidim.org, and we have monthly meetings to discuss and to involve the community in the project. And we have a lot of active instances around Barcelona, different cities in Spain, and different cities in other countries in Europe and out of Europe, France, Mexico, and other cities participating. And we have a lot of institutions involved in the project. Just to remember, the 28th of this month, we have our international meeting here in Barcelona, and all of you are invited to participate. And thank you very much.
Okay, since we started a little bit later, I think we can have some more minutes for open up the discussion with the rest of you. And then as a continuum, because based also on the presentation of Arnau, the Decidim project is now engaged in the Decode project, that it's a project about data sovereignty. So I think that your presentation is also a good preamble to that right after our session. But you mentioned this idea of participation in a way that I think we are also moving from database policies into some kind of civic data processes where things are more interrelated. No? And you mentioned also, Beth, the idea of experiencing data and the important role of cities. That's one of the key aspects of your talk as well. So please, questions from your side, doubts, proposals?
Maybe this is the obvious question, but maybe you could explain how the three of you could make each other stronger. What you could add to each other with the things that you have.
You've got a pretty broad demographic in terms of participation. You've got older people who've used the platform, so it's been really successful in terms of the distribution of engagement. Because one of the key things is it's not just people between 16 and 35 who are using it. Yeah?
Actually, we don't know about that because we try to preserve the anonymity of the users and we don't have demographic data directly, but looking at the people who is participating in different physical meetings and the people who is involving around the project, we have the other side intuition that older people is participating more, like 50 to 70. And the young people is participating less in the platform. I don't know why. Maybe it has to be around. It has to be related to the language and the visual language or the participatory experience, or maybe about the time disponibility or the culture in participation. But here in Barcelona, the experience say that the older people is participating more and is deliberating more in the platform.
Yeah, for my perspective, I think that for us it's a bit different because we are working with cities and so on, not directly with citizens, but I do like your approach, so your democratic participation. So I think that's something that maybe we could learn from them is how to improve this participatory approach, also from their cities to propose meetings. I mean, because we are a large network of cities, we cannot have every month meetings, but we also provide seminars and online meetings in which could meet. So maybe I think that one thing that we could learn is how to promote this process and not just decide by ourselves. And about your project, I think that it's a bit different for what we are doing in general, but I do also like how you trying to really understand what's going on in cities and how to actually be in the city. You showed us like the map, the interface, so you're really looking at what's going on there. So maybe from us, that's where we need to go more in depth. So not just looking at the papers, at the documents, but also maybe going more in depth and try to understand what's really going on at city level.
We have a lot of industry that's devoted innovation and creating new markets around location design. So all of the stuff in the cars and on your phones. So we have a huge commercial industry around that's come up very quickly. But we really have very little design that's civically oriented to help one with engaging broader groups who might not already be somehow participating, but also to do something beyond just show you where you can shop or how to get from one place to the other avoiding traffic. Now, I'm happy to avoid the traffic, but we can use some of those paradigms that already exist and then design toward different outcomes with them. So that's part of the idea of this work.
just to add and about Decode and about demographic question, we are, and probably the friends of Decode gonna explain better, but we are working on to have by default that all the privacy guarantees to the data of the citizens by default, but then we have to provide ways to give the opportunity to citizens to give their data anonymized in order to have a sample about what is happening inside our places. But the citizen has to be the owner of their own data and has to decide the rules in which give this data to the other people. But we defend the principle that we have to, by default, have a strongly privacy in this kind of platforms, and then we have to think how we develop this to move forward.
Okay, I think many of the things we are also reflecting or considering right now are at the intersection between design and research, because experiencing data via virtual reality or as a citizen that can take decisions or contribute to decisions at the city level, it's this kind of very experimental mode of approaching participation. I don't know if some of you, because I see some faces also from research, from design, more questions. We still have 5 minutes, to compensate this morning technical things.
Yeah, hi, my name's Sarah, I'm from the Open Data Institute. I was wondering, so first I had a comment. From having been involved in activism and cooperatives, it's often older demographics who are involved. You see that in the UK as well, around things like community land trusts. I suspect it's a time thing. But yeah, you're not alone, basically. My question was, is there an ambition? Is the long-term vision to incorporate this type of decision-making process into the kind of legal structure of how decisions are made? I know that's a huge question, but is that kind of the ultimate political goal that is where this project is kind of rooted in?
No, that's a very good and important question for the project. The first principle is that we believe the public institutions has to promote public and common infrastructures, because we cannot have democratic processes if we don't have democratic infrastructures, and we need these democratic infrastructures, and this democratic infrastructure for digital participation has to be free and has to be open and has to be anybody has the ability to track and to check that everything is working, that the government says that works. This is the first thing. The second thing is that we have to provide ways to empower the citizens in order to provide autonomy to the citizens. And this is why in the city of Barcelona we have two services. One is the platform for citizen participation for the process promoted by the city, but then we provide the infrastructure for the organizations to have democratic processes inside their own organization. And this is why we promote also the autonomy of the citizens in the city, or we try to promote this kind of autonomy. And we have to, we need to be very aware about that the citizens has to be untrusting the government by default, but we have to recuperate this trust in order to giving them security and direct channels of participation. And if we have today in a situation of absolutely representative democracy, and in the other side we have the absolutely direct democracy, we have a huge field to explore and to build another kind of democracy. And there are a lot of ways to do it. This is not just a binomial. There's a lot of ways to do. Maybe these are our 3 main political goals behind the project. Thank you.
I think that we already have that built into, democracy's part of the foundation is we vote. And what we've seen is the erosion of participation, because there's an erosion in trust, in any sense that these systems will produce outcomes that are of value to us. So I think some of the design of the new tools is it doesn't recreate democracy, it recharges us around how we might participate and understand that our participation is meaningful. In a country like Switzerland, you have something like 100% participation, and they vote not just every year or 4 years, they vote like once a month on all kinds of things like where will the trash incinerator go? How can we go to 0% in energy? And you have different issues that come up when you have a small, rich population that's super highly engaged, but they are. They absolutely, I mean, they all participated in voting against certain immigration allowances. So we can agree or disagree with that decision, but that participation is incredibly high. So we can look at what are the conditions that it did not erode in that country, but in other countries, we have whole economies that say, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that, so just sit back and you don't have to do anything, and we have huge amount of unhappiness and unhealthiness. So I really think that that's part of the power with the reviving the commitment to be a citizen and the labor on our part as well.
Yeah. I also think that's our case, as you were talking about long-term vision, about commitment and trust, what we want to provide for cities, but also for citizens and the people for the city is a safe place where they can share their material and they can do it in a safe way. And we built our work on transparency and trust. So our goal is to provide this safe place that actually city can use. And of course, city means citizens, so it's not just people from the government, but everybody who's taking action in the city, also in a participatory way. So that's something that we also want, that's the direction that we also want to look in the future.
Okay, more questions or comments? You want to raise your hand? Okay. I would like to thank Matthias, Beth, and Arnau for your presentations and also for your patience with the technical problems early on. And as I say, this session is a good preamble we consider when we made the program for what we want to do in the next 2 hours. It's a very complex question. No? We've been talking about how data and participation has a lot of political implications. And the Decidim project is one of the pilots of the Decode project that it's a very ambitious and ongoing project about data sovereignty and what's the kind of perspective from a user and citizen point of view when you enter into a system and provide your personal data, which decisions you can take at a specific moment, and what implications it has with legal aspects, economic aspects, and also governance aspects, how to decide together what we do with our data, what other people does with our data. So for a complex question, we thought about an imaginative solution, and we would like to transform this agora or this stand more into a kind of lab or laboratory for working in groups. And that's why I asked at the beginning of the session, who of you would like to stay with us for a little bit more, because this requires basically 3 steps. We would like to present and keep this kind of setting for Antonio Calleja from Decidim Project and myself to explain a little bit more what's the code and what are we doing with Decidim and participation and this important aspect of data commons and data sovereignty. This presentation will take approximately half an hour, no more than that. Any doubt or consideration, we can discuss it with you. Then we have a kind of a very experimental thing, which is that we would like you to register into the Decode. We have a platform, a prototype that it's already working, and we take this as an opportunity for you to engage in the discussion, because if you register with us, we will show you how, with your mobile or your laptop, then you will be part of the process. You could be participating as the pilot moves and the investigation moves. So you will be with us, so to say, in the longer term. And finally, hopefully in the last hour, but also the rest of the day, this area is going to be more divided in 3 groups. If needed, if there's more of us, we can also split and have another group there. And we will focus on the challenges and opportunities, and specifically on proposals and action points. So any of us as users and citizens can have a say, and we will tell you how, basically. It's something we have to summarize in the next session. So, of course, I also invite you to be part of it. Thank you again.